Hello and welcome to another episode of the Socially Numb podcast. I am your host, Richie Leahy. Last week I went ahead and talked about getting published on Apple News. Now with that, I also started to look into other publications. Now, as you know, I have been transitioning my site into Medium, which is a publication hosting platform. It lets you host for free, which is great, and it gives you pretty strict limitations, but it also goes ahead and sets up a pretty easy to read platform and gives you like your own brand, which works. Now you can tell that you're on Medium, which was okay with me because you could have told that I was on any other number of platforms, including WordPress. You can tell whenever a site is on WordPress. And so we went ahead and made the switch to that. And I started to syndicate some articles. I haven't gotten through all of them yet. It's going to be a slow process. I have a lot of content. So as I have been building these up, I talked about maybe getting into setting up some of the other type of content that I do. Now first, I went ahead and started to look outside of just Apple News. Because to me, I was shocked that I got such a great response on Apple News. Thousands of views within, and it was 3 days last week. So like I talked about, I forget whatever I said I had. But I did publish on Wednesday. And so whatever time, because it's whenever I get home late at night, I publish. So that gives me Thursday, Friday, Saturday maybe. I'm not sure about the time zones. So that could be another thing that I've noticed before is sometimes whenever you publish late at night, depending on the time zone, it might mess up a day. So it might actually think that I either published Thursday or Friday or Wednesday morning or like Thursday and early, like in the middle of the night. I'm not really sure on that. I haven't looked to see what the publication time said. But I was publishing Wednesday night here on the Eastern time in the United States. So with that, I went ahead and I set up my publication and I got good response. So I went ahead and started to look into it. Now, Google News, I knew going in that you need multiple writers, you need content each week, and I'm just not able to produce that for the Leahy Report myself and for the podcast here, even with the Southbound Sports stuff, even though I have a couple collaborators right now and we're working on expanding that. It's not going to go ahead and hit enough to hit on Google News. So I went ahead and looked into Bing News. I figured the way I see it is most people have to use Google. Now, I thought, and I might have mentioned this incorrectly on the podcast before, but I was under the impression that Microsoft was going to buy Yahoo, and it actually turned out to be Verizon. So if I've mentioned that, and that might have been episodes ago, I apologize. Microsoft had tried to buy them years ago, it looked like, and they didn't. So I was under the impression that Microsoft had Yahoo, but they have LinkedIn. And so Yahoo is still a separate search engine. Now with that, I was under the impression that like if you went ahead and listed on Bing, that you would automatically get listed on Yahoo Small Business. And that might be the thing. I thought I looked into this before. And so if I'm incorrect on that, please let me know. But I thought for some reason that Bing was running Yahoo search now. And I'll go ahead and take a quick look here just to make sure or see if I can find out anything else. Okay, so I'm back here. And it does say that it is Yahoo is a web search engine owned by Yahoo. As in 2015 or whatever, it was the third largest. With Google and Bing ahead of it. And it did say that Bing would power Yahoo a few years ago. And so maybe that is true. Maybe Verizon owns Yahoo, but the search is still in collaboration with Microsoft. Because I did my research and I had my notes like, hey, you only have to get on Bing and Google and Yahoo will follow. Because if you're launching a site, and I've talked about it before, you basically just want to be on the big three, those three sites, if you're in the United States. Now, if you're in a foreign country, Look into it, see what people are using in your country. I know specific languages have their own search engines, and that might be great, and that might be what you need to use. But for the United States, what you need is Google, Bing, and Yahoo. So I went ahead, started to look into Bing. Now, Bing has their own webmaster tools, just like Google. And again, I'm under the assumption, and I could be wrong. So if I am, please let me know, because I'll need to do some research. I did look into Yahoo Small Business, and it was kind of by like a third party that wasn't legit and nothing happened. And I think they just forwarded my information to whatever Bing is, which I already had an account. So I was really confused on that whole process. And then the website changed on me when I did that last year. And now it's like its own little site that doesn't do anything, and it says it doesn't publish anywhere. So I kind of cut that out and deleted that account. So right now I'm only down to Google and Bing. Now both of those, Microsoft is Bing, so they have their own webmaster tools. So set those up, had them crawl the new Southbound Sports site, since I had the content moved over on that one. Boom. Perfect. Worked well. Had everything on there. Everything looks good. Everything is live. It's crawled my site. Didn't have any issues. Put the sitemaps in and put the feed notes. And so then I was like, all right, I'll look into Google News. You have to boo. I read through it. Didn't really meet the requirements. So I thought, okay, I'm under the assumption that Bing gets a lot less users than Google. And I think that's true based on traffic reports. So that I'll go ahead and I will submit my content to Bing News. I go into their publisher hub or whatever they have set up, and I go ahead and start it up, and boom. Get an automatic rejection saying that my site does not have enough authority, which I believe that to be, it's just new and there's not that many pages. So whenever it looks at the sitemap, it probably laughed because I only have 30 articles or so. So I need to start building it up. And how you build up authority on the web is to build up links and have everything interconnected. So you need links, you need pages. And so I went ahead and started with Southbound Sports. Since the Leahy Report's not going to have extra social media or anything, I'm just going to be using my personal, like I've been doing since the start of Socially Numb. So go ahead and follow me on Twitter, Richie Leahy. And so I went ahead and took advantage of that for Southbound Sports. So since the publisher hub for Bing wasn't going to get me on there, I went ahead and started to create and fix up profiles for Southbound Sports to go ahead and make posts and start to do like automatic posting on social media, which basically what that means is you write a bunch of tweets and Facebook posts, and then you just schedule them so that you're not having to sit in there and do it manually. And then if people respond, then you just go ahead, tweet back at them, write back to them, whatever you need to do. So that's what I started to do. I went ahead and started to set all of that up. That was my goal. That was what I wanted. And that's basically what I needed to start building authority. Now the next step is going to be to continue writing articles. And so maybe next year, after I get a year, I believe the site wasn't used before, or the domain. So that kind of hurts you too, because if a previous owner had it, and like let's say they had a blog on there and that had some authority, if you purchase it, it will go ahead and kind of keep some type of clout. People will be pointing at your site even if they're 404 links or whatever. But I don't think anyone had either of the domains, Leahy Report or Southbound Sports. So I'm kind of starting completely fresh. Now the next thing to do is if you got some collaboration with maybe, so like the sports one, if I got some sports teams to like link to something I did, or like I give them like, hey, here's an article I wrote, you want to publish it on your site, that might go ahead and build up authority pretty quickly. So that's something I'd have to look at and see down the road if I'm going to end up being able to do that or not. I really don't know. So I'm going to have to revisit that later down the road. And if I come into anything new with that, I'll let you guys know. The third one that I looked at was Facebook Instant Articles. Now, Facebook is starting to drive me crazy because they are basically becoming the pay-per-view of the internet. And if you don't know what I mean by that, I'll talk about a little experiment that I've been running. So basically, Facebook has kind of what they started as was more of a professional portfolio site for like a more professional MySpace. It was locked down, if people don't remember, and there's so many articles written on Facebook. You can go ahead and search this, try to find, fact check me, whatever. But this is pretty much how I remember it. This is going from my memory. And so how Facebook was set up was I had just started college, I believe, when it came out, or I might have still been in high school. And to get onto it, you had to have a .edu address because it was like a professional portfolio. So I went ahead, got that email, set up my Facebook, boom, boom, boom. Everything worked fine. And then the only people who were on it were other students. And so they were really on it. It was kind of like pre-Tinder. You were kind of just like on there to kind of hook up, find friends, whatever you needed to do. So you would like just randomly message people, tweet them or message them. It's not really tweeting. So you would send them a direct message or a post on their wall that you would assume that only other students would see. So people would think it's funny. It was kind of like your own personal private network, or kind of like a bulletin board at school. So that's how everyone I knew used it and what it was for. There was a lot of trolling, a lot of just like random posts, people like having like video, or I guess videos might not have been on there, but pictures of like drinking beers or doing whatever, partying hard. People didn't care. This was before anyone warned you about, hey, don't worry about what you do on social media. It was pretty much like no one else is on here. There are some things that happen. I might tell the stories later on. But basically, at our school, we found out that the dean of our college had access. So he could go ahead and go in and view. Facebook basically granted this guy permission to view all of our posts because we used a .edu address from this university. And so he could go ahead and see anyone who had those email addresses and read through all their posts, even if they were private messages or whatever. So at that point, I didn't really use Facebook. It was like too much. I'm like, well, why have this big brother guy look after you if you know that other things are going to be? I think that they got heat around that same time for that issue because people were like, hey, this is supposed to be like locked down. Now you have people losing jobs. And it was kind of like the first scare. And I don't remember what year it was. Late 2000, first decade of 2000s, somewhere through there. That's whenever people started warning you like, hey, be careful what you post on social media because people can see it. Because then what happened once they gave school administrators permission, then other employers wanted permission, and I'm pretty sure they would probably pay Facebook. So they'd pay Facebook for access to view these recent or brand new graduates. It was a perfect system for these guys to kind of pick and see, so you're not totally going into a blind. You could take a peek at what your potential employee did in their free time. And so it was a scary time, so I immediately deleted mine because I thought, no need for it. And at that time, I had to kind of outgrew it. I had already gotten some warnings about being on there from Facebook. They were kind of like doing the Facebook police at the time. I even tried to, so then even after I tried to reactivate it, they were like, there's been some type of content. They wanted me to like verify something and like give them my driver's license or something. It was crazy. I was like, no way am I doing that from my email. So basically my email got flagged for being on there and just like, I guess calling them out or whatever. But they went ahead around this time, and this is like years ago, probably almost a decade ago now. They went ahead and opened it to the public to kind of get away from the backlash. They're like, well, hey, here, now we don't have to deal with that. It's not a private network anymore. It's going to be open to the public. Anyone can sign up. And at that point, I didn't want to be on there anyway because most of the family then, they start going on. They would see all your old crazy posts. People would have to go through and delete a bunch of their posts like, oh, I don't want my parents seeing that, or I don't want like my new, maybe like you get a new girlfriend. You're like, oh, well, look at all these old posts I had. I don't want them to see that. So basically, it was kind of just like dirty laundry at the time if you were one of the very first people to use Facebook. And to be honest, a lot of people that used it through that original and saw that transition, a lot of them don't use Facebook anymore. It's kind of like a weird thing where no one's like, all right, we're going to have to move on and go ahead. At that point, I started to use Twitter, which I think Twitter started like, I think I got my account in 2009. And I just put everything out in public. I figured whatever. If Facebook's going to go ahead and give people access, who's to say Twitter doesn't have the same thing? Where like your potential employer can ask Twitter or pay them and they'll let them see your private content. You don't know. So there's no really any point in a private content device, whatever. So because of this, and I started to do publications, and I was doing like the Southbound Sports is a collaboration with some other friends and family. So I wanted to make sure that it was out there, and I know people use Facebook. So I got back in, created my account. Luckily, I was able to get in without having to do that weird verification thing with my driver's license, even though they still wanted me to if I tried to use my other email address. So I went ahead and got into there, and I set up a page. Pretty straightforward. And I had toyed around with this a few years ago. I brought my Facebook back for a little bit. This is whenever they started to ask me to verify myself, blah, blah, and all this other stuff, saying that this is an account that has been flagged and other garbage. So I deleted it again. I don't know who was flagging me or what was going on. But I could easily create a fake account. No one would know, no big deal. Put a fake name on there. Anyone can create a fake Facebook, not a big deal. So I toyed around with pages before because it is a good tool, Facebook, to do like events. You can invite people to events. If you're a band, which I had back in the day, and you would throw up events, people could go ahead and comment on them. But then you find out that like pretty much every band's on there, so it's kind of just like a droplet in the ocean. Way, way, way too many. Nothing's going to get done. All you have is just this crazy stuff. So it's not that big of a deal. And so that's pretty much what I had for the page. People were able to see it. People were able to find it. And like Twitter, Facebook has a trending topics now, where that is whoever's talking on the trending topics. Now, how Twitter works is whoever's tweeting about that, anyone can see it. You click on that, and Facebook works the same way. You click on the trending topic, and right there you can organize it by current, top, or whatever. Recent posts or top posts or whatever on Facebook and on Twitter, I believe. All right, so I did take a little break there to look because I wanted to make sure. So Facebook does allow you to see the other posts. You have to scroll down. There's no setting. So it shows you the top posts at the top, which are like their promoted ones. People pay to have their posts up there if you're not aware of that. And then they have your friends and group posts, which if you don't have any, or I had one, I think, for whatever the top trend was that I looked real quick. And then there's one that says public posts. Now your public posts, if you post on what's trending, yours should be the top post for like a little bit. And then or like if people keep scrolling, they can keep reading, which most people, the way it works is you click on a trend, scroll down, and some people read your message, and they'll either like it or they'll, like if on Twitter, they'll retweet it. On Facebook, they'll share it or whatever the buttons are called. Basically the same thing. So if I'm using Twitter terminology, that's just because I've been using Twitter for almost 8 years now. And so there you go. I'm on there, clicking through, going back and forth, liking, trying to see. So I started to test this out with Southbound Sports because on Twitter, whenever there's a big event going on, the basketball tournament the past 2 weeks, I would go ahead and I would take advantage of that. And whenever we would, just to help promote our own stuff, I would go ahead and use a hashtag like, oh, hey, here's our picks for the tournament, hashtag, whatever the trend was. If it's March Madness, basketball tournament, whatever. They change depending on what's happening. I think this week it was like Elite 8. Next week will be Final Four or whatever. Whatever's happening, you just have to change. And then that way other people can see and they'll go ahead. Now, Twitter marks it so that if you go ahead and see, and you might hear some clicking because I'm actually going to be using Twitter analytics to like kind of just talk about what I'm talking about today. So I'll use like my real numbers or whatever. So basically what you are looking at is whatever the top trend is. So here, if I look at a month, and this is brand, like our Southbound Sports Twitter only has a handful of followers right now. But by doing the trending tweets, we went ahead. So like the first month, 3,000 views. And I don't even know, it was like 40 something tweets. Then I worked up to like 100 something tweets. So like here, we had one and it was 41,000 views on our tweets for that month. It was 168, which is our most recent month. So 41,000 views is pretty good. Just whenever you're starting out as like another step, because remember I split the sports podcast off of this one, and this one's kind of just like on my own account and stuff. So here I have Southbound Sports, 41,000 views. Put that together with the Apple News, a couple other thousand views, and there we have a pretty successful reach for free just because you're using social media. And do you have to strategically do it? Yes. Is it better than paid advertising? I don't know, because I believe like Google advertising is pay-per-click. Maybe I buy a billboard. Billboards aren't that expensive. Everybody would see it if we were going to like use a town or whatever. So that's what you're looking at just for Facebook. And so the next big thing that they're talking about is Facebook Instant Articles. And now I know this took me a while to get to, probably 20 minutes into the podcast episode, what I'm talking about this week. But I go ahead and Facebook Instant Articles. This is the next big thing. It's basically the Apple News competitor. Now you have a way on your app to view a brand new like news article. And for us, if you know how Medium works, there's no ads, so there's no ad revenue. We're doing this because we like talking sports. Yeah, maybe if it gets some revenue to help pay for some podcast hosting, that would be awesome. But I'm just tired of like some of the sports coverage. No one really talks about sports. They all talk about politics or other stuff. I just want people to talk about sports, the games that are happening. And so I thought I see a void, and I decide, well, I'll just spin off my own podcast and get some other people who want the same thing, and then that's what we'll talk about. So boom, that's how Southbound Sports was kind of formed, just based off of Socially Numb and getting some good podcast download numbers from this, draw some people interest that, hey, maybe there is a goal. So now I'm trying to expand it, and I look at it. Facebook Instant Articles, Apple News did well last week, which was unexpected. We were pretty happy with that. And so now I'm looking at Facebook Instant Articles, and there we go with a new way to reach potential people. Because Facebook, if you go in, you create your page, you type in your demographics, boom, this is who we're looking for. These are the areas. Obviously with sports, we're only going to be able to focus on teams in certain areas and then do some general coverage with whatever's trending or whatever. But most of the time, your target demographic is going to be whatever teams you talk about the most. So I went ahead, circled those, filled out Facebook's thing, and it said we could probably reach about 4 million people. And then it said, do you want to focus on it? Well, if you want them to see it, you click on that or whatever, and then it asks you for your payment information. You have to pay them for it to show the areas that you selected. And I don't know what prices other people get or what, but the example that I had, and this is just to promote the page, I went ahead and clicked on it, and it was $3 for like, I think my target ended up being 4 million people plus, but it was like around 4 million something. And so my target, if I paid $3, they would show 600 people out of those 4 million my post, I believe, or like one of my things. So like, let's say if I had set something up where people could pay for like a paid download for a podcast or something just to help pay for the hosting, then yeah, that would show. And there you go. You would pay and a couple bucks and see if anyone took. If anyone bit and tried to click on it. And so that was it. I don't know if Facebook shows it to them or if you pay and you get so many guaranteed clicks, because that's how Google works. It's like $1 a click or something. I don't know. I didn't get too much into it. So that's the page aspect. And so I did a 1-to-1. You saw my my Twitter, you heard about it, 41,000 in a month views. So in that same time, I used the scheduler and started to post, and I just looked at a week's time, which Twitter gives you a couple thousand. Facebook got me 1. And I don't even know if it was like someone outside. So one person messaging on the same trends. I just looked whatever was trending on Facebook, whatever was trending on Twitter, and posted the same content. And I got one view on Facebook. One. So I started to dig into it. I thought, well, this can't be right. Are people not looking at the trending topics maybe? I mean, maybe that is right. Maybe that is what happens. Maybe people use Facebook and they don't ever click on the news. They only see what other people retweet and then or resend, they share, and then they go ahead and share that. Or they share stuff directly that they find on the internet. And they don't use Facebook's built-in algorithms. I don't know. But that's what happened. It was going ahead and it was only showing that one person saw it. So and that's if their number's correct. So boom. What a waste of time. I went ahead and did all that, and it was a good test for a Facebook page. Now maybe I'm going to keep it going just to see, because once we get a good bit of content up, and then maybe if I share it to my friends, then maybe they would share it, and it would go ahead and start a chain. I don't know. But maybe that's like what would happen. Maybe that's what Facebook expects you to do, and just going ahead and just starting a Southbound Sports page and starting to promote it separately. Maybe that's all it is. Now, the other Facebook, someone did try to tag me, but it ended up trying to tag a page that I had for this possible show, the Leahy Report. I had it set up as possibly being its own page. And so right now it just is, it's a clone of what my personal profile is. Same picture, same name, Richie Leahy. So, and I don't have any likes or anything because I haven't promoted it. It's just been posting a couple things. Again, same idea. I thought, all right, well, let's see if we get any views. I think that one had 5. And it was all one post. And I believe I accidentally shared it on my personal too. So it looked like I shared my own post, but the post wasn't there because I had a friend ask me, they're like, hey, what was up with that thing you did? And I just told him like, oh no, I was messing. I think I messed up my profile from a page because it was set up as like a photography page. So it said photographer. I changed it to coach just for the sports thing. But that's what I was looking at. And so I know that's a roundabout way to get back to Facebook Instant Articles. But here I go. If I go ahead and start to do Instant Articles, is it going to be the same thing as the Facebook page? Are people not going to see it? I don't know. That's what I'm worried about. That you go ahead and you spend a bunch of time putting in these articles. And that's the conclusion that I came up with. I only had one view, so I looked into it. I went through the whole Facebook Instant Article setup. Now, just like Apple News, you have to get approved. You submit them a couple articles. I think it was 5. I think that's what I did with Apple News too, even though it didn't tell you how many you had to submit. But I'm pretty sure I submitted 5 to Apple News, and I was going to do the same things on Facebook Instant Articles. But I go ahead and I start to set it up. It asks for a feed. I try to pull in the feed from Medium because I thought, okay, this is already set up. This is going to be easier. Maybe you'll let me pick and choose which ones. So I tried to set it up as a development feed so that it would pull in the articles, and then I should have been able to promote them to publish, and I was going to pick the same 5. Well, it wouldn't do anything. So Facebook Instant Articles, nothing happened. Every time I would click, it would say something about, you're not an approved Facebook Instant Articles. So I thought, okay, it's like I'll submit them manually. I assumed it was going to be like Apple News, where it just gives me a blank text editor. I copy and paste my article and upload the photo and boom, submit, and they review it. No. What they give me is the back end of an HTML page editor. So I thought, oh, well, this is kind of weird. I have to take, and of course with Medium, I never see the HTML. If I was still using Blogger, I could just take the page and right-click using my browser, and that brings up a thing on Google Chrome called Inspector, and that lets you go ahead and inspect, and you can see your HTML. So then I could have just copied the page into Facebook, and it would have worked. And I think I could do the same thing with Medium, but I thought, I'm not going to do this every time, because when I tried to do it, it gave me an error. It's just something about my code wasn't compatible with Facebook Instant Articles, and then it gave me some documentation that I looked at to try to read. And so there I went through, and I started to click through and click. and read and see what happens. And nothing. I kept getting errors, and it was taking me so long. And by the time I finally had one that was like in there, I thought, this isn't worth it. Who's going to see the Facebook Instant Articles? Facebook already has me soured because of Facebook pages. No one's seeing my content on the page. Then I have to pay for likes. So I have to pay for likes to get some views to go ahead and go from there. And is Facebook Instant Articles the same? So I started to do some research online. Started to look on Twitter and even on Facebook. Even on Facebook's own help, there were people complaining in the comments that they wanted to pay. One guy even said that on his page, he had Instant Articles set up, or wherever they view it, and I guess there's ads on it or something. I guess you can make money off ads. And he said that on his Instant Article, he went through all the trouble setting it up. He's lives in a small local town, that the ad they showed on his Instant Article was for his direct competitor. And so he said, well, there's no use of me using this if you're just going to go ahead and promote my competitor at the top of his post. So it didn't make any sense. I would have to go ahead, set up pages, set up some posts, and then I'm still not really sure where these show up. Did they only show up to people share them on the mobile phone? Now, I know Facebook has a separate app, but I'm not one to use separate apps because I believe that these companies use that to get their investors. So they can say, okay, well, we have this many app downloads. And so if you split out your Facebook and you split out your Messenger and you split out Facebook pages, then they have 3 times the downloads. Because if you only use one app and it's not growing, then that's it. There's a ceiling. There's only so many people in the world that have cell phones. So once they go ahead and reach that ceiling, even if it comes prepackaged, so if every phone that comes prepackaged, they buy a phone, they also get rid of an old one. So Facebook loses one and they gain one at the same exact time. So there you go. You have it. And so I've been looking at Facebook Instant Articles, and to me, I'm not going to use it. If you have a positive experience with it, let me know. But right now, I'm going to roll with Medium and Apple News. Apple News got me the results I want unexpectedly because they have far less reach than Facebook. Facebook with Instant Articles, I thought, well, this is a natural step. I'll get 1,000-something views from Twitter each month. I'll get 1,000-something views from Apple News. And then possibly Facebook even get more, because I think more people use Facebook than Twitter. And I know they use it far more than Apple News. So here was a perfect chance to get more views, and they made it so difficult that it wasn't worth it to me. Now, I will say this, and this is kind of what I'm waiting for, but Medium, Facebook does have plugins that you can use. So if you have a WordPress blog, you can pull your blog directly into Facebook using what's called an API. Now, Medium might have that. The latest article I found from 2015, they did say that they were working on it. So if I can go ahead and get an API code that pulls directly into Facebook from Medium, then yeah, I'll probably set it up. Because to me, then that's low cost because it does it automatically. The feed didn't work, so I couldn't do it that way. The RSS feed that Facebook had set up, that did not work. So the only way I could do Facebook Instant Articles was to set it up manually. And I don't want to post each post manually. Basically, Apple News is kind of the same way. I have to copy and paste it manually, and I don't want to get into doing that for multiple sites. So I'm going to go ahead and see if Medium has those set up. I'll report back whenever I find out if they do, and then that would be the way that I would get Facebook Instant Articles. But to me, as a developer, even because I am a programmer, computer science grad, I don't want to waste extra time learning someone else's system that they could change or delete at any time. No one is changing HTML. Yeah, like I said before, Medium could go away. They can go bankrupt. Anything could happen. But I have my code. I have the content. I could just rewrite a database dump and dump it into a WordPress platform, pay for my own hosting, and my site's back up within a week. So to me, perfect. Go ahead and set that up. I'll roll with Medium for now just to build content, and then if that ever happens, I can go. But Facebook, if your content's cut off and I'm using that as a syndicator, they could close it at any time, and I wasted all this time pulling in my articles each week. And to me, that's time lost. And for what? 1 view? I got 1 view on Facebook for trending. what's the purpose of having a trending topics if you don't show what people are saying? So basically you would click on trending and you would see the paid promoters. That doesn't make sense to me. That's not a natural platform. And no wonder they're struggling with trying to get people to engage. They're starting to turn into like Google, it seems, with the way they cut and just get rid of products. Google is so frustrating. You don't want to learn a new platform from Google because they could just go ahead and delete it at any time. Think Hangouts. So Hangouts had like the live stream video. They had their own messaging. Now they're splitting those up. They have a new messaging app. They have a new video app. Who is going to install that and use it? I can't get friends to do it. Maybe family to see our daughter, but that's it. And they're not going to like it. And then if something happens, then they have to learn a whole new system. It's frustrating to get older family members that aren't really that good and don't use technology that often, that just want something easy and want it to work, to learn one system, and then Google cancels it, and then they have to learn a brand new system. So that's what I'm looking at. And Facebook has the same, or Google has the same thing as Facebook with instant articles. They have a thing called Google AMP, where again, they want developers to write their code using HTML, just like Facebook wanted me to do. And again, I'm not using Google AMP either, unless, like I said, unless Medium already provides it, which they might, I don't know. I'll probably put in a help ticket just to see whenever I go ahead and edit this article and I hear myself talking about it. I'll probably go ahead and put that ticket in. And then next week, I'll let you know if I made any progress on it. Because to me, that's the next step. That's what I need to see next. And that's what I want. I want to just try to promote the site. Do it for free. Yeah, I could pay. But for me, I'm doing it for free right now. Like I said, the downloads are free. The hosting is free. As long as the hosting's free and I don't have to make it up, that's perfect. Now, I did say that I did hit the download because we're getting so many downloads that, hey, that we might hit the limit. And I'm going to have to start paying out of pocket. So with that, there was one other thing I was looking at because we're closing in on almost 40 minutes now. I did take 2 breaks to look stuff up, so I don't know if that's in the time. So the time could be way different whenever I edit this down. And so with that, I talked about hitting the downloads for the Amazon free tier. We're downloading way too many episodes each week. So now I have to pay it. I'm at the point where I can either pay a flat fee or maybe hit a month that it doesn't quite reach that peak, or it might go way over it and then I'll have to move. So you won't notice on your side unless iTunes, I have noticed when people do it in the past talking to them, that for some reason iTunes re-downloads old episodes they listen to if the source changes. So I apologize if that does happen, but there's really nothing I can do, I don't think, if the costs start racking up. So just to offset that, I've looked at like Patreon or whatever, maybe get some people to pay for downloads. But again, I don't know. I don't even know how many hardcore listeners that would entail, that people would want to pay to download. If you would be interested in something like that, please let me know. I might put something like that up. But in the meantime, what I started to look into, and this will probably be next week's episode, is an online store. So the online store, you can just buy merchandise. So I figured I would throw up for the Leahy Report and Socially Numb, just throw up some generic shirts, not generic, but like with our logo on it. And that's it. So whatever, an online store that was free, to let me upload my art, like a variation of the cover of the podcast that says Socially Numb on it. That's it, without my name or anything, which might entail people to buy it, even if they don't even know what the show is. And it might give us another promotion because I know some of those online stores, they promote other people's gear. So Socially Numb, pretty funny name. Well, some people would take that to heart. So it's not really, I guess you could say funny. Maybe some people won't view it that way. But that might be something where people would see the shirt and say, oh, that's cool. I'm Socially Numb. I hate social stuff. And so they'll buy the shirt and they'll inadvertently support the show with that. So that's what I'm looking at doing. And that's been a whole nother headache because these platforms haven't changed since like the early 2000s, like the old Cafe Press days. So I did look at a couple of them, and I'll probably talk about that next week. So I've been going through and setting it up, and it's been frustrating because I've tried one store and it didn't look like the content was being loaded. So I wasn't sure if it was working. And then I went ahead and tried another one, and that one said 24 hours to wait. And so I've been plowing through trying to just upload. I thought this would be something that I would be able to knock out on a late Friday night. After I watched some basketball games, I could knock it out in an hour, and then that was it. But no, this has turned into a whole weekend project, killing my whole weekend with trying to get a store set up for the show. And then so basically what I was looking for was an online site that would allow me to create 2 separate shops. One for the Leahy Report and my general podcast, which would include yours truly, Socially Numb. And then I would have a separate store for Southbound Sports. So I did find one that was pretty easy to set up, but they wanted me to do collections. And when I was trying to figure out how to set that up, I ran into a bunch of negative feedback, like 1 star compared to the other ones, where they were ripping people off and holding payments. And I thought, well, they're not even letting me set up a store anyway. And with this many negative compared to the other ones, like the other ones all averaged at least 3 or above star on the Better Bureau rating or whatever. So like I was kind of like surprised at the huge discrepancy that this one would kind of look like a rogue company. And then inside the comments, one of their employees was like yelling at customers, telling them that it doesn't matter what the payments, if they're on time or not. But that's the whole purpose of a business, is that you would do it to get paid. Like some people I would imagine, were using the site to do it for their job or their livelihood. Yeah, I'm just using it to offset some podcast hosting. If I get a shirt, whatever, if like let's say hosting is $5 a month, I get like 2 or 3 shirts purchased, that should cover it just for that month. So I'm not looking for like to make a living off it. And so it was really shocking and eye-opening that a customer service rep for this one company would go ahead and do that. And I'm going to look and do some more research on it, because yeah, it was one weekend and I want to make sure that I get the facts out there before I start spewing all that out there. But if you have any recommendations, please let me know, because I'm looking. I think I have one ready to go. I thought that their system was like messing up, but I believe that it just auto-populates. So like if you click a shirt, it auto-fills whatever your settings are on every single shirt they have, even if some of them don't come in that color. So like my problem was that I had an all-white logo, and so then on a white shirt, you couldn't see it, but certain shirts only come in white. So my option to get around that would be to have to do like some type of outline on the word so that it looks good on every shirt no matter what people buy. So that's my dilemma right now, and that's my fiasco, and I'm going through and trying to set that up. But that's it for this week. We're going to go ahead and dig into the Game of the Week.
All right, back to talk about Game of the Week. I may have lost my voice a bit. I was just about to finish the podcast. I had to step out. I actually went to a pretty cool place. It was called Bounce U, with just a letter U, kind of like Bounce University would be abbreviated, but it is basically one giant location just filled with big blow-up toys. So it's pretty cool. It reminds me of, some of them were like the American Ninja Warrior or whatever that TV show is, something you would see on there, or like that other television show that's kind of like it, Wipeout, where it's like the big inflatable things you have to run across and climb up on there. And we took our daughter, and we still got to go, and they let the adults on it and run across the things and climb up some stuff. So it's a pretty fun time. But yelling at your kid a bunch of times like, hey, watch out, blah, 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 over the jet noises from the air things really killed my voice, especially after podcasting for like 40 minutes or so, whatever this was. So I apologize if my voice just dramatically dropped off in quality for the end of this show. But anyway, back to Game of the Week. I know I teased Assassin's Creed last week, but I am still working on Assassin's Creed 2. I've been kind of toying around, catching up a lot of different things and just playing around, trying trophies. I know I'm not a trophy hunter, but I realized, like with last 2 sequences to go, I was 60-something% in trophies. And now most of the time, if you're just playing through the story, you don't get that high of a percentage because there's always going to be like some online thing where you have to play 500 online matches to get the trophy. To me, that's not a gaming skill. So like here you go, I'm playing through Assassin's Creed, and I noticed, so on the original version of this game, I guess there were 2 missing memories, which I'll talk about whenever we talk about the game if you're not familiar, but basically a memory is like a chapter of the game that you would buy as DLC, downloadable content, which I think is an awful thing that is trending amongst game developers. It's kind of like, hey, keep buying these season passes, and then they're all pretty much garbage content. But according to my game, I had those already installed for free, and so some of them were kind of just like longer. Hey, it probably added an extra hour to the game that I wasn't expecting. I thought I was on the last chapter, and I didn't really have time to play that much this week because it's been getting nice outside. But anyway, so now I was looking at taking my time through those, and while I was doing it, I was kind of looking to see what chapters I had, and maybe, just for the sake of the podcast, if I might take a run at the Platinum Trophy. And so there are some that are like kind of random, like you have to throw sand and hit 4 guys at the same time, and you have to kill 10 guys in battle without getting hit. And I'm trying to play, like as I'm playing through this last 2 chapters, I'm trying to do that using like smoke bombs or whatever, but at my point, I'm only ever able to get 7 guys in battle. After that, everyone runs away. So like the other 3 guys that I draw in, they all like take off running, and then it never pops if I have to run them down. So I'm not really sure. I guess there was a chapter where I probably could have got it, which might have been what they were talking about. I don't know if I can actually go back through and replay it. Like that might have been the chapter where the game was supposed to pop, but I was just using Hidden Blade. Like I wasn't trying to not get killed because I didn't know that was a trophy. But there's one chapter where you're like escorting a guy down the road, and he was going. So I'll be talking about that either next week. I don't know if I'm going to make a run. I might not, depending. I think there's one that's like collect 100 feathers, which feathers have nothing to do with the game. It's just something that they added in. I mean, maybe it unlocks something, but I don't know. There are some other trophies that are like buy all the armor or whatever, but I have a bunch of money because I didn't buy anything. So maybe I wouldn't be able to afford it right away, but I'm pretty sure I could. So I'm probably going to play through the last chapter. That's what I'm on. And talk about it next week if I go for the Platinum or not. I might circle back around and bring it in again later because I have all of them. I got them for Christmas a few years ago where I got all the Assassin's Creeds because I like the story and I know the book that it's based off and I've read parts of it and I thought like the idea behind it is cool and I haven't finished reading the book, but seeing the movie made me want to play the games that I had. And realistically, there's no real gaming series right now that get me excited that I would want to go ahead and play through them. So to me, I buy a console system. I have a PlayStation 4 and a PlayStation 3. I figured, hey, I might as well get some games. I'll just get all of these. I had never played them. So I know I like the style. I like Prince of Persia going in. So I knew I would like the gameplay. I think it was based off that. I think the original one, or maybe the second one, was supposed to be a Prince of Persia game that they kind of had to twist around because it didn't fit the one character mode of a story. So just for this episode then, I'm going to talk about, last week I talked about Shovel Knight. I'm going to bring that in again, and this time the story is Plague Knight. So I'm guessing they could go ahead and release extra games for this with each of the bosses. So Plague Knight was originally a boss in the Shovel Knight game. Now he throws bombs, so the whole gameplay has kind of been rewritten. I played through, the levels were kind of the same. They might have been exactly the same. I don't know. I didn't look and pay that much attention to notice if there were like slightly things because he jumped a bit different. He had a double jump, and some of the platforming stuff for the knight, you had to like use your shovel as like a bounce spring and bounce off bad guys. And this guy couldn't do that, Plague Knight. So there might have been some variations in the levels, but everything else was pretty much the same. So you would go through and fight all the same bosses in the same order. I mean, the map was the exact same. And then you would go ahead and whenever you would fight Plague Knight, that was replaced with Shovel Knight coincidentally meeting up with you there. The story was different. It was like a love story, which kind of caught me off guard. I mean, I guess it was kind of interesting. I didn't have feelings about it either way. But that's what I played through this week. I thought it was pretty good. And I know that you can buy all of these separate or together, but I consider them separate games because they have separate stories. So even though I have the Treasure Trove pack, each one is separate. So I'll probably bring in the third one as well later on with my thoughts on that. But Plague Knight as a whole, he does have his own quirks. I actually got used to him. It took a little bit of time to get used to him because remember, I went right from playing Shovel Knight into Plague Knight. I feel like if you took a time off, took a little break to go ahead and play through Zelda or something, it would have been a little bit more enjoyable at the beginning, but by the end of it, I was having fun, having a blast. I thought it was easier than Shovel Knight once I got used to his bombs and I was able to find the upgrades I needed. And just like Shovel Knight, I tried to play through all of the special levels and everything just to get a feel for the game and kind of see. And I didn't unlock everything. I didn't collect all the coins. Again, I know they have achievements, but it's not tied to your account. Like there's no trophy level account, at least not yet. So I'm hoping that if Nintendo does go that route, that these will get added to my account later. I would kind of like that. Again, like I said, I talked about it before. I'm not a trophy hunter. I know I talked about maybe getting a platinum on Assassin's Creed 2 if it's possible, just to kind of have another one. I have one for Madden, just because I didn't like the gameplay, so I figured, well, let's see how they want you to play the game. Because I assume that the trophies are what they want you to do, what the developer wants you to play. And so with Madden, they had their trading card game. So I gave it a go and got the trophies for that. And then I thought, well, that part of the game sucks. So I want to go ahead and through, and then I just got the football trophies, which some of them were like weird BS ones, like you had to take one player and intercept the ball and take it to the end zone with just that one player. And you had to control them, so like you had to play however many games as that guy just to hope that that happens. And if you play against other friends or whatever, that will never happen. I think it was like a D lineman. But anyway, back to Shovel Knight. I enjoyed the game. Like I said, check it out the first time, just the Shovel Knight story. But the fact that you get two separate games, basically, again, I think it took me around 5 hours, so about the same amount of gameplay. I think the package on the Switch costs about like $20. And with this, I really put the Switch through the ringer. So I left my Switch on. And this is since I got it. Like I played Zelda on and off, and I had other people play Zelda. So it wasn't like I had Shovel Knight running that whole time. And we played Snipper Clips too, which is another game. Once I finish it, I'll bring it in for Game of the Week. But I played the Switch basically docking it sometimes. There were days at a stretch that I didn't even dock it. Like I didn't dock it every night because I felt like, well, some nights I don't need a full charge. Shovel Knight did not have the same battery life as Zelda. Like if you would play 3 days or 3 hours, I think they said Zelda would last 3 hours on battery. Well, I played 3 hours of Shovel Knight and I think I was still at 73%. That was about the equivalent. So I could basically go a whole week of just having Shovel Knight in my bag if that was what I was playing. And so hopefully, and I don't know what the ROMs and things, how they're going to do the emulation for SNES or NES games, but I'm hoping that this is the same style of game, a 2D side-scroller, that some of those older games would take about the same battery life. So you could technically have it in your bag, pull it out. That's what I like Shovel Knight. And I really love the Switch. I mentioned it last time. I can go ahead, be in the middle of a level, someone pops in, it's like, hey, can you do this, blah, blah, blah. Something happens, hey, can you watch our daughter, can I go do something, or I'm like commuting, and I need to get off my stop. I just pause the game and hit the power to put the Switch in sleep. And as soon as I resume, I have the default, so like it locks, you hit 3 buttons in a row, the same button 3 times, it unlocks, perfect. The game's right where you left off. So I cannot talk about that enough. To have that type of freedom, it's not like if I had to do that with my PlayStation would have to sit and stay in on all day. Like, let's say if I'm sitting around hanging out and someone's like, hey, you want to go get a bite to eat? Yeah, cool. Like, let's go. I could be at a friend's house playing Switch on their couch, pause it, and then go. They could be playing PlayStation. So, like, it's a whole game changer. Because there's been times, and I know this is a while ago, but like in college, like you go over to a friend's dorm room, they're playing video games. Video games nowadays, like you don't have split screen multiplayer. So if you're going over there and they're playing like even a computer game or whatever, you're kind of sitting there bored on your phone while you're chatting, hanging out. They're like, hey, yeah. What they're talking to you while they're playing. But like you're kind of wishing like, hey, I wish I was playing. And then the same thing vice versa. If people come over to my room, I'll be playing games. Sometimes I'd offer them like, hey, want to play some Mortal Kombat. But people were like, I don't play games like that. But now you have a freedom as a gamer. And that was before like mobile games and stuff. So now I know people who would do that and just play mobile games on their phone while they're hanging out with other people. But if you're going to be gaming, like if you have a gamers club, like we had one on our college that I was a part of, and we would have to like have one system people would play and take turns. Now, if everyone had their own Switch or even tablets, I mean, like some games like that, they're not going to work out. But the Switch is so much better. You could be sitting around playing Zelda. Doesn't matter where your friend's at in the game. All that matters is yours, and you can run around and play. So with that, again, I can't speak highly enough of it. Check out Shovel Knight if you have the system. I've been looking at the other games. The one game that intrigues me is Bomberman, but I think the price tag is way too high. I've played through Bomberman back on the 64. And there's been rumors that, hey, that might come out. I think that actually just came out on the Wii U. So there's been rumors that might just be ported over to the Nintendo Switch whenever that's relaunched. And I think the price is like a fraction of whatever the $50 cost is. Now, it would be cool to have another cartridge game just to bring in and out. But I mean, I have enough digital space. I got a pretty big SD card that I could throw some games on. And just to have, because I have a case. Now, I did notice that with my case, sometimes just throwing it in my backpack, that the Joy-Con would kind of stick. Like, I guess there was pressure on it from something else in my bag, probably my digital camera, and it would kind of push the Joy-Con to the side. And then nothing happened, though. Like, there was no lasting effect. It didn't get stuck or it didn't break. But that's the only downside I saw with, like, carrying it around. And, I mean, the Joy-Cons are replaceable. Are they expensive? Yes. Would it be easy to replace them? I mean, I guess you can buy them separately. So, like, if I always put it in my bag one way, which I do, and it was the left Joy-Con that was happening to, and that's the one that has issues anyway, which I need to call Nintendo and see. So if you do have one that has issues, this will be what I end on. Call Nintendo and ask, because they've been replacing them. So that's a PSA. Make sure that you have a public service announcement. Make sure if you have a Switch, you call them and try to get that replaced. Because it's unfair, and it has been an interference thing. I think instead of adding an antenna, they've been adding a piece of foam that blocks interference, which, I mean, same thing. You could have more powerful signal, or you could just block the interference. And I do think, remember I talked about this, I speculated that there was some other technology, and the reason they didn't add the antenna in the left one was due to power. I think, and I could be wrong, is that the one that has the Amiibo scanner? Let me look that up real quick so I don't sound like an idiot. Okay, so it looks like the actual right one has the Amiibo scanner, which that's the one that has the home button, and that would be the one that doesn't have the interference problems. So maybe they needed some type of antenna for that, just to have like the extra code. But then that wouldn't make sense that they wouldn't just throw one in the left one. I mean, the battery one, that was a good idea, but it looks like it doesn't check out. So that can't be their cop out of that. But again, if you have one, you have issues, make sure you contact them. I'll try to reach out to them this week if I remember. I doubt they're going to have a time frame on people complaining about it because I bought it at launch. But I'll do, and I'll bring it back in. And again, I talked about like the Facebook Instant articles. If I find anything else out, like on Reach and stuff, I've had better luck on Instagram and Twitter by far. So that's what I would recommend. The instant articles probably isn't going to happen. I'll probably touch base with Medium and see, reach out and bring that back in next week just to let everyone know. This way, if people are curious, they can see if I get it set up with their automatic feed and their API tool and people run WordPress blogs, it would be similar. But I just don't know if Medium supports that. and it's not a big of an issue for me. But that's it for this week. So thank you for listening, and follow me on Twitter. Follow me or like my page on Facebook. I don't know, that's not even set up yet, really. But you can find me, Richie Leahy. If you have any questions, reach out to me and let me know. And I'll see you next week. Thanks.